Hi, I'm Stellian, the creator of Am I the Problem? My first Oracle play deck, and I'm excited to talk to you about each of the categories. So, obviously, this video is going to be dedicated to the red category or the Cardinal Problems. And if you're watching this video before the 1st of January, Am I the Problem is now on Kickstarter if you want to join the campaign and get your copy of the Oracle play deck. So the very first card of the deck is actually anger. And you might be wondering, why did I choose anger to be the very first card? Because anger is one of my non-states based on human design. My natural inner state is peace. And so in my life, I've consistently experience that if I'm in a situation that is making me angry, I am very much out of alignment with how I'm supposed to be on earth. And I'm not saying that anger is the natural state of people, but that it's so out of my normal state based on who I am that anger has always baffled me, confused me, and in many ways, I've repressed it and suppressed it my whole life. And I've not been very comfortable expressing my anger, communicating it. And equally so, I've had many people in my life that were angry as I was growing up. And so my anger didn't seem to matter as much. And maybe it was witnessing how anger manifests in other people that kind of inspired me to not give in to the anger, but rather to learn how to alchemize it and create something with it. What I love about anger, the way that I've created it in the deck, is that it can be symbolic of different things. So, in its positive expression, anger can signify that a boundary has been crossed. And so, you're reaching these states of anger because you're not sure how to defend your inner child, how to defend your inner boundaries, but each person has their own set of boundaries. And so when we get to the state of anger, it means that our boundaries have been crossed, but we weren't taught properly growing up how to be aware and clear about our boundaries, how to set them with other people, and how to honor them, how to respect our own boundaries. So, anger in its positive expression means that it's protecting you from other people taking advantage of you. And I love anger being the first card because one is the number for one's identity. And the very first card of the deck is about protecting your sense of identity. However, in its more negative interpretations, anger can also signify that you're dealing with a person that wanted to manipulate you, that presented a false identity, and therefore they're now angry because their manipulation tactics are not working. And this is certainly the anger that I've witnessed my whole life. People being unhappy with boundaries that other people have set in order to protect their identities because they in the first place were never interested in honoring your identity and honoring your boundaries, but rather in taking advantage of the fact that you didn't know how to protect yourself in order for them to manipulate you. So witnessing the anger of a manipulator can be eye-opening, it can be shocking, but it can also allow you to move on, to heal, and to connect with the right people on your journey. So anger is the first card and the first cardinal problem. Obviously, there are many routes that can be explored as to why a person is moving into the modality of anger. Why are they displaying anger? Is it you? Is it somebody that you're dealing with? It can be traced back to their early life onboarding, their childhood. It can also be connected to generational trauma. Again, I've witnessed people around me being angry as I was growing up. And I don't mean just in the household, I also mean teachers, I also mean leaders, role models. So I'm very familiar with what it's like to be angry or to be around people that are angry. In fact, I'm more familiar with that I am with people that are at peace. And in many ways, that's how I'm being a change maker in my community. So the first card is anger, the second card is meltdown. And I would go so far as to say that meltdown takes anger to the next level. So this is where the stakes are a little bit higher. One, the number is symbolic of one's identity. Two, the number is symbolic of one's resources. This is the level of the material possessions. This is also the level of our values, the inner balance, the masculine and the feminine. So, to me, in its more negative connotations, meltdown is about a person kind of losing their marbles, losing everything that they've got because the persona that they wanted to sell to the world is now falling apart. People have witnessed beyond the mask and the show cannot continue. A meltdown can be witnessed not only in children, but also in adults. And I've seen that myself. I've seen leaders having a meltdown, especially when somebody questions them. And they question them for the right reasons. Obviously, they question them when it comes to the planning, when it comes to the budget, when it comes to things that they're supposed to be taking care of. But you see, sometimes leaders are more preoccupied with the image and not with doing the actual work that is necessary. They're interested in selling you the vision, even if it means stealing from other people, especially when it comes to resources, right? So a meltdown, that's the next level. Anger is the first step, meltdown is the continuation of that anger. And usually people have that redemption arc possible between the meltdown, sorry, between the anger and the meltdown. But once you reach the meltdown, the recovery journey back to the center for those that are having the meltdown, that's going to take a little bit longer. And so if you're dealing with someone that's having a meltdown, that meltdown isn't, it's just the tipping point of their healing journey. And it's not on you to heal them. Nobody can do the healing journey for anybody else. And so if somebody's having a meltdown, even if you trigger them, you are not the problem that trigger them. The fact of the matter is that they were building on top of a false foundation. Whatever, the masks, the filters that they may have been employing in their communication. But in its more negative interpretations, meltdown is about the false facade falling apart, the illusions being broken, the manipulation being, I don't want to say reversed, but once a person has reached a meltdown, the manipulation cannot go on. Not in its current phase, not in its current state. So the person might choose to heal and break the manipulation spell, or they can advance the manipulation, they can advance the lying and continue with their false facade. In its positive interpretations, meltdown is about somebody that has reached the end of their patience. This is somebody who's given people a lot of chances, a lot of understanding. They've extended that trust beyond what they should have probably. They've crossed their own boundaries. They've sacrificed their own comfort zone in order to accommodate somebody else or maybe a group of people. And they're finally reaching that meltdown because they're unable to cope with their emotions anymore. And there is no one to support them as they're navigating this world of complex behavior and complex emotions. And it's very childish in a way. It's very primitive, but in a way, it allows us to heal a little bit faster. When children are having a bad day, if they're having a bad afternoon, they just have a meltdown. They have a temper tantrum, but they get it out of their system. And so when you see a grown up having a meltdown, a public display of the emotions that have been bubbling up and they've been suppressing for a long time, that means that they're open. They're finally ready to release that which has been weighing them down and holding them back. And in many ways, it is a healthy way of expressing a lot of the blocked, repressed emotions. So it can be the first step of the healing journey. It can be the first step of them unburdening themselves. And if they have honorable intentions and they're honest in their nature, you can have proper communication with them and proper connection with them. And so, yeah, the problem might become clear after the meltdown to be spoken about. And then that journey back to being a good friend, good colleague, a good supportive family member can resume. Card number three is liar. So, three is the number for communication. It's not random that liar has appeared as the third card. And in many ways, it is a continuation of anger, meltdown, and liar. Again, if we're following the thread of the storytelling, we can see that there is a theme here of protecting one's identity, even if it's a false identity, or attempting to communicate one's identity, especially if we've not been allowed to, if we've been in environments where our authentic self wasn't given proper space to be channeled, to be shared, to be appreciated. So we have the two sides of the same coin in a way. And the liar card, in its positive interpretations, yes, there might be a positive interpretation, is somebody that's lying to themselves because they don't want to face the truth in a way where they would have to take more accountability for setting stronger boundaries, for honoring themselves. So this becomes more of a journey about, oh, I can see that these people have been the problem in my life, and I need to take more accountability for me to protect my identity, for me to continue to align with my identity, and then be of service to humanity. Because if I allow them to continue to be the problem, I will never achieve what I came here to achieve, and I'll never be who I came here to be. In its negative interpretation, this card is about somebody that's been cosplaying as somebody that they're not, somebody that's been lying about their intentions, somebody that's just been so used to getting away with falsifying the truth that they don't they don't care to be cautious even at this point, because getting caught might actually liberate them a little bit, but they know that you're going to give them the grace even if they found out that they're lying. And if you're dealing with a pathological liar, my God, these people don't have a sense of wrong or right. They just want to protect the facade. They want to protect the illusion with everything that they've got, because to them, the illusion is the truth. It's the only reality that they want to supply with their energy. And so the truth, the actual truth, is of no interest to them. And so if you are a person that loves the truth, loves being honest, loves getting to the bottom of things, to the heart of things, pathological liars might actually be more attracted to you, because to them it becomes part of a sick play where they want to lure you into their truth and prove to themselves and to other people that their truth is beyond, or rather above, the truth that we share in the world. Card number 3 honors that number 3 is the number for communication. So do not be fooled. If this card comes to the surface, investigate further whether or not you are the liar in the storyline, if you have been lying to yourself and potentially maybe lying to other people as well as part of your way of protecting yourself. What's the story that you've been telling yourself? Card number 4 is the card for the sociopath. And 4 is symbolic of the subconscious mind, psychology, home, the roots. So there's a little bit more depth to this card. And if we're following the storyline, we can follow the depth of the illusion, the depth of the problem. So we started with anger, we're continuing with this with the meltdown. We're given a little bit of a redemption moment, a redemption arc, if we want to come clean and come to the surface, or if we want to continue the lie, if we want to continue enmeshing with the false reality, which is where the sociopath lives. They are entirely of the illusion, entirely of the false reality, because to them, they've spent a lot of years in dissociation. They spent a lot of years navigating complex trauma that has impacted the way that they view the world, and their psyche is not fit for this world. So if you're dealing with a sociopath, in the negative interpretation of this card, you're dealing with someone who is not quite there. You're not even dealing with a person that's present, that's presently channeling their consciousness. You're dealing with a person that is a set of programs, a set of their programming, their beliefs have been, shifted in order for them to match the environment where they grew up, or match this distorted society that we live in, where there's always competition, there's always one winner and the rest are losers. And the sociopath has been conditioned by this version of society, the unhealthy version of society, where they have to be the one that wins, the one that updo you in one way or another. So a sociopath can be dangerous, and you should not take this card lightly. If you're dealing with a positive interpretation of the card, a sociopath is someone that might be at the level of facing their own shadow self, their own wounds, and on the recovery journey. This might also be a call for you to return back home and investigate what's been happening in your home, in your household. What are the generational patterns that you might be tasked with breaking, that you might be tasked with reversing, so that you can change the storyline of your family, of your lineage. It's a more nuanced card and it brings more depth to the cardinal problems. Number five, gossip. Now, five is the number for creativity, for education, for, the early stages of growth. It's not quite like six where the self growth is, but gossip is usually what blocks us from evolution because we think we're bonding through the shared experiences and communicating those shared experiences. But actually, we're not doing the work because we're focusing on somebody else. We're becoming these broadcasters that are broadcasting information that has nothing to do with our own personal evolution and even our shared evolution. Because why would you have two people that are getting together to talk about five other people, which has nothing to do with their own growth? Sure, if there is a predator in your society, in your immediate community, a little bit of exchange around that predator and how to protect yourself, that's for safety reasons. That's for your survival. But for you to spend your free time getting together with people that you call friends to gossip about other people and to base your entire friendship around that, that's anti-evolutionary, if that's the way to describe it. But this is where creativity gets blocked. This is where one's flow gets blocked. So in the positive interpretation, it's a call for you to examine your own behavior, examine your own motives, and examine your own focus. What are you giving your attention to? What are you giving your power to? Because where your energy goes, that's where your power goes. And so in many ways, these people, the people that engage in this habit of gossip, they're disempowering themselves because they're spending so much time talking about other people and other people's plans and goals and achievements. They're not spending that time they could be talking about their own goals, their own dreams, and what they can do. And in a way, they're giving away their power, their energy. In the negative connotations and the negative interpretations of this card, you might be dealing with people that engage in the habit of gossip, and to them, that is the norm. Unfortunately, gossip breaks friendships apart, breaks connections apart, and gossip has the power to break two people apart even from afar because gossip is linked to lies. You see how we're building up from the first card? We're building on top of these patterns. Gossip is rarely about the truth. If it was, it would be news, it would be journalism, right? Gossip is usually, well, I heard, well, I bet, right? There is that assumption that comes into the picture. So if you're dealing with people that like to engage in the habit of gossip, these are not your friends because they're not objectively looking at you. They're not looking for your presence to enrich their lives or for their presence to enrich your life, but they're rather thinking, how can I use this person's story to achieve something? And people like that, people that do gossip, they use other people's stories or storylines and they like to play with those storylines. And that's how they become a problem in your life. Anyone that is gossiping, if you give them enough access to you, they will make a joke out of your story, out of your storyline at some point, inevitably, because they are addicted to the habit. And that habit is what's blocking their evolution. And if you allow them access to you, they're going to block your intuition inevitably. So be wary if the card gossip comes into your reading, your game, however you're using the cards, especially if you're using it for channeling, if you're using it for tarot and oracle readings. Gossip can be positive if it draws your attention to your own actions and how you can take more accountability. If you're obsessing over celebrities and the card gossip comes into, your reading and it says, oh, it gives you the indication that you might have spent a little bit too much time thinking and caring about celebrities that have nothing to do with your own life. So for you to bring your attention back to yourself. If the card comes as you're investigating your or exploring your relationships with other people, it might suggest that, people that you're trusting with things that are important to you might engage in the habit of gossip regularly. Therefore, they're not going to be protective of your dreams, of your goals, of your truth, of your storyline, of your life. So keep that in mind. Card number 6 is the card for burnout. So here we have quite possibly the biggest red flag on our self growth journey. So six is the number for self growth. And so the sixth card is aligned with that. But what happens when we dedicate so much time in the pursuit of growing ourselves that we forget about the rest of the world, or we forget about other aspects of our life that require our attention, our care? We burn out. And we can burn out when we focus our energy towards one thing, one area of our life, regardless of what that area is. People burn out when they're building a family, and that's all they care about. That's all they focus their energy on. And it's not a bad thing to care about your family, but if that consumes all of your energy and attention, you're going to stop taking care of yourself. You're going to stop, advancing professionally. You're going to stop giving time and attention to interests outside of your family, outside of this family unit, and it's going to lead to a burnout. If you focus all of your attention and care around a work project that consumes your life, say bye to your friends, to your family, to your self care, to your interests, to your social life, and so on. So, we're tasked with finding the middle ground. We're tasked with finding balance. And the card burnout, in its positive interpretation, it's going to guide you back to balance, because it's going to remind you that if you are prone to burnout in one area of your life, you're prone to burnout across all areas of your life. And I've personally experienced that because I did burn out in a relationship. I focused all of my attention into that relationship, and I burn out at work because I focus all of my attention to work. And it's a gradual process. If a card is bringing you back to yourself and it's reminding you of the accountability that you can take at any given moment of your life, the card has done its function. It's reminded you of your own power, and it's given you a little bit of guidance. What is the pattern, the cardinal problem that you keep repeating? This is why I've started with these 10 cards for the first category. These are some of the biggest habits, patterns, coping mechanisms that we use that allow us to get lost. And if we were to pay attention to them, these 10 things, we're going to avoid the big mazes in life. I mean, there are many mazes. We can get lost across various points of our life, but these 10 core problems, especially if we turn them into talking points and we start to analyze them and not use them as the final judgment or a diagnosis, and that's it, there's no hope for us. In the more negative interpretation of this card, burnout, we might also be dealing with people that are pushing us to burnout. Unfortunately, whenever we've been in a situation of burnout, it's not because of our own choices entirely, it's also because the system that we were part of enabled that, in many ways facilitated that. It encouraged us to burn out because we were supplying that system with our undivided attention, unconditional love and support, and the list goes on. So it's a call to examine, what are the people around you at this point? If it's the family unit, how are people benefiting from you getting burnout? And are they given an equal, reciprocity? In the workplace, are your colleagues benefiting from you taking extra projects while they get to, do less work but get paid the same, and in some case even more? Do you need to call out people? Do you need to speak about the problems that are at play? Because sometimes accountability and changing our own behavior is not the only thing that we are required to do. Sometimes we need to speak up and use our words to bring the attention to the problem. And sometimes the problem isn't another person, but rather the whole system. In a system that is faulty, in a system that is corrupted, some people are going to benefit and others won't. And if you happen to be one of the people that are not benefiting, you have the chance, you have the power to change the system. Card number 7 is ego. And again, following numerology, seven is the number for partnerships, connections, and kind of our work with other people, our connection with other people. So building up from burnout to ego, there are two ways to solve this problem. One is to take accountability and rise above the situation and think to yourself, how can my contribution help and support other people? Right? The other one is to say, well, I can be selfish and I can move myself to the other side of this corrupted system where I get to benefit and I get to move somebody else to take my place. We've seen that also in society where people realize that they've been overgiving, whether it's in a relationship, in a workplace, and they think to themselves, my turn, which is the ego speaking, my turn. And the next person that they employ in the workplace, they start to treat them badly. They start to project everything that happened to them that they haven't solved, that they haven't healed from, onto them. So we're replaying the trauma in a trauma loop with somebody else. Trauma dumping in the physical meaning of the word, not just talking about it, but rather let me do the let me use the Uno reverse card and teach somebody else what I've been taught. We see that in families. It's a very common tactic, and it's not really a tactic, it's a coping mechanism where narcissistically onboarded family members decide to have a child, and they decide to bring another soul onto earth, decide to take care of another soul, but because they haven't resolved their own traumas, they give them the exact same treatment that they received, even if that treatment was unfair, even if it was corrupted, it was dysfunctional, it was toxic, it was painful. But on some level, they've numbed their emotions to the point where they don't care because now it's their turn. That's the ego talking. So, in the positive interpretation, believe it or not, the ego is about taking the accountability to move your ego a couple of levels lower so that it's not taking that central stage role in your life and it's directing the entire show. Some people experience the ego death or the death of the ego when they deal with somebody that's just, that's reasonable, that's logical, that's intuitively gifted, and they're very balanced. So, again, if you haven't reached the balance in the previous step, you're going to continue moving out of balance, whether that's extreme or, not extreme, but, not perfect balance. And you're going to pass on some of the trauma that you experienced further. But if you manage to master your ego, establish the position of the master over your ego, you're going to be able to achieve that balance. In the negative interpretation of this card, you're dealing with people that are ego driven. So everything that I talked about in the last 5 minutes about people experiencing unjust treatment, and instead of them breaking the cycle and having the strength, the courage to do something about it, they just think to themselves when they find the opportunity, my turn, to pass on that same treatment to somebody else, which is not only unfair, but it's also immature and it's a sign of insecurity and it's just a sign of poor emotional health. The first 10 cards are allowing you to take care of your main operational system so that you don't develop even further complications when it comes to your own behavior and when it comes to allowing people with further complications into your reality, because then unpacking their behavior, understanding their motives, their actions, that's going to get even more confusing. Card number 8 builds up on top of the ego card. 8 is about transformation. 8 is about big life events, big changes that happen to us, whether we initiate that transformation or that transformation happens to us. And especially if these circumstances around us are a little bit more negative, we tend to think of ourselves as victims. Oh, why is this happening to me? Again, the ego, if the ego has not been mastered, if you've not become the master of your life and you're allowing the ego to run the show, you're going to be one of those people that say, oh, everything bad is happening to me. Why are you punishing me, God? Why are you punishing me for my actions, my sins, whatever the case may be? The victim is an opportunity for you to realize that you're running the show and that you have a lot more control than what society might tell you. And the victim card is there to remind you that sometimes things happen that we cannot explain, that are a little bit more unfair, but that's not a life sentence. It's a season, it's a teaching moment. It will pass, and you have the power to change that story that you've been telling yourself. If you choose to use that power, that's your own inner power. That's your own inner wisdom that you can tap into to allow it to guide you. Many people get stuck in the victim zone and they waste years of their life. They waste years not realizing exactly what's hidden in them, not realizing how many more options they had than they initially thought. In the negative meaning of the card, you might be dealing with someone that has a victim mindset. And if you're dealing with someone that has a victim mindset, unfortunately, I don't know if there is much that you can do to remind them of their own power, because remaining a victim and remaining into the victim zone, that's kind of by choice. And I know people need to be reminded that they can practice their free will to make different choices, but choosing to be a victim in any situations is a choice. You're choosing how to view the situation. And I think it's a bigger conversation, obviously, but if you're dealing with someone that has a victim complex, they're not going to transform. And they're not going to view big life events as an opportunity for them to transform, which is reminding me of a story where we had a family dinner a few years ago, and my grandfather started choking on a piece of food. And I remember most of the people on the dinner table, we had like 10 people, 10, 15 people. The staff obviously were at a restaurant. Everybody froze for a couple of seconds, and we realized we need to move, especially because like, a few of us had seen movies, TV series where you need to act really fast if somebody starts choking on a piece of food, because time is of the essence. Like, that piece of food, it's not going to move unless you apply some pressure. So a couple of us started, grabbing the body and starting to do the Heimlich move. Unfortunately, that didn't work because my grandfather passed to the surface. So the staff were saying, "Well, we need to turn him to the side and then use a spoon." And I remember kind of volunteering, "Give me the spoon," and I moved the tongue and I started to like work with the air path to release that piece of food. We saved his life, but that's the thing that can happen in moments like these. You might think to yourself, bad things always happen to me. Bad things always happen to my family. Oh, we're cursed, right? You're putting that sentence onto yourself. In that moment, many of the people sitting on that table either became the victim, chose the seat of the victim, or they were frozen, which automatically kind of in their mind as they're reviewing that, they might thought, oh, he was a victim, right? They could have said he was a victim, but rather they could have viewed the situation as this was an opportunity for us to be the heroes that save the day, because we each on earth have the power to be heroes that save the day for somebody. I'm not saying every day we go and save human lives like Superman, but you know what? We might actually be in a position to do that. Every day that we show up, every day that we show up in the workplace, we show up for our family members, we show up for our friends, we show up online for people that are trusting us for guidance, we might actually be saving people's lives. And so, if you're able to snap out of that victim mindset, my God, miracles can happen. Unfortunately, some people are very inclined to stay there a little bit longer, and you cannot do anything about it. So, understanding that you're dealing with someone that's a victim, a perpetual victim, that's going to liberate you. Card number 9 is the Pride card. And I love that this card actually has the silver spoon, now that I've mentioned the spoon. Again, some people might be prideful when it comes to saving the situation. They might think to themselves, "Oh no, that's beneath me. That action of going and trying to save a human's life like that, that's beneath me." Like, now, if they ask me to go and deliver a speech, now that might be more, what I'm aligned with. And so, Pride and Prejudice, that movie, very aligned with this card. Pride in its positive interpretation, again, bringing it back to you, it's reminding you that you're not better than anybody else on earth. Even if you've had better education, even if you've had better, I guess pride is the problem. Wow, this is a very unexpected glitch that caught me off guard. There are a couple of songs dedicated to pride as well in the last few years. So, pride might just be one of the biggest problems that we have. 9 is the card for higher meaning, higher self, the ascension journey. So this is continuing on our own personal evolution, but also if we cannot continue our personal evolution, we cannot connect with people that are aligned with us at the higher level. So we're only going to be attracting people into our reality that are connected to our trauma, that are connected to our coping patterns, coping skills, coping mechanisms. So, pride here, if it relates to your progress and your growth, it's allowing you to view yourself as equal to other people, regardless of your opportunities, regardless of what you've had the chance to experience and other people have not. We each have that human nature. We each have that soul that we're supposedly attached to. Some people have a much harder way to connect with that soul, but in reality, you've chosen to be here, or you are here for a reason, and you are here to be just like everybody else in terms of your rights and your ability to be of service. So if you can bring your pride to a healthy level where you protect your identity and you're proud of your identity, but without viewing yourself as better than other people, you might just be able to connect to a lot more people than you imagined possible. And equally, if you're dealing with somebody, which is the more negative aspect of this card, that is driven by their pride, it's going to be very difficult to reach them. It's going to be almost impossible to reach them at the level of their soul, at the level of their heart, because they're going to have a lot of walls and boundaries. And people with pride usually judge other people, and they judge them based on, well, you're not wearing the brands, therefore you're not of money, or your taste isn't what I, if you're not doing a specific set of things that they've already categorized as these are my people, then they'll have more boundaries when it comes to opening to you, and you're going to have to prove yourself essentially, because in a way they think that they're better. And so that's why they've designed these. It's an obstacle course that you have to go through in order for them to qualify you as somebody that's trustworthy. Which again, it's a game that people driven by pride play, and it's just not fun. It's a lot of mind games, and it's a lot of, they put you into these competitions just to make sure that you care about them enough for them to let you in, because if they let you in before you care enough about them, then they've lost the game. Again, invisible competitions, mind games. Don't underestimate the pride card. I think the image here I've chosen is a man that is viewing the world with more pride, but again, it's not gender specific. I think it fits the narrative a little bit better. And, based on the world that we live in, you might meet a lot more men that are successful because the system has allowed them to be successful. But in the process, they've increased their pride because of the circumstances that have allowed for this elevation at the physical level. So, anyone can display a type of unhealthy pride that's going to block them from truly sharing who they are and from truly connecting with you based on who you are. And sometimes it's not even rich people, but people that have this sense of spiritual pride that they're better than you because X, Y, and Z. Or moral pride. Pride can be applied to different levels, but it's a type of operational system that they have going on that's just gonna block them from the ability to be their best self with you and to allow you to be your best self. And in a way, it's gonna block the evolution at an individual and a collective level. Finally, we have the love bombing card, which is a narcissist's specialty. It's also a specialty for people that love manipulation. Love bombing is a way to manipulate. It's a manipulation tactic, and people employ it because they want faster access to you and they want access to the gains in the fastest possible way. But the gains in this version of the manipulation is that you are to be used, and therefore if I have access to you faster, then I'm going to have access to the gains. If I collect you into my collection, you are now going to be used for displaying that I have more power, that I have more clout, that I have a better image because I'm associated with you. People that love to manipulate other people, they don't view them as human beings, they don't view them as equals, they view them as toys, as items, as possessions. They view them as something that they can play with. Love bombing in this case, even in the positive meaning, it allows you to take action, to set boundaries with certain people, and to understand that their motives are not as caring and loving and gentle and noble as they might present at first, especially in the scenario of early dating. Love bombing is often used to establish that trust that would require months and years to establish. I think people have watched a lot of movies, and especially with social media now, we're constantly being shown relationships that are unrealistic, relationship goals that are not even real. I think a lot of people forget that movies and social media influencers, they have the camera rolling, and when the camera is rolling they're acting, and once the camera stops rolling, everybody's just like, oh, like that image of what's his name, Ben Affleck, yes. Like that image of Ben Affleck where he's just smoking and he's just done with life. That's essentially what happens when people that are in front of the camera That's how they earn their money. That's what they do for a living. That's, the role they've chosen to play in society. Once the cameras stop rolling, they can decompress and they can relax their muscles, their face, everything, because it's not reality. Love bombing, also in a more positive interpretation, can bring your attention to yourself in terms of how you're showing up in relationships, especially early on. Are you overgiving in order for you to prove your loyalty, to prove that you're lovable, and in order for you to make sure that the other person doesn't leave? So you constantly buy them gifts, you constantly show up with more attention and more presence than you probably should, because it's coming a little bit more obsessive and more controlling. Again, there is an element of control that is associated with love bombing, whether you have good intentions or not, because you're trying to manipulate the situation, you're trying to control the situation by making sure that the other person on the other side doesn't leave. That's not up to you. We have soul contracts that are beyond our understanding, that are beyond our logical abilities. And sometimes soul contracts are completed after a couple of months, after a couple of years. And we are tasked with meeting other people and working with other people, living with other people, creating with other people. So you attempting to control the situation, that's ego driven. And the pursuit of self mastery, self growth is for us to bring our ego to a healthy level, just like our pride, so that we are in a balanced state and we allow more of our soul to come to the surface, more of our intuitive self to come to the surface, so that we meet each other as we are authentically, without forcing anything, without pushing any agendas, without trying to control and manipulate other people, because deep down we don't trust ourselves or them. And so this is the 10th card, love bombing. 10 is usually associated with public life, it's associated with success, it's associated with completion. And so you can imagine how using love bombing as a tactic can often be perceived as a faster way to get there, to get the whole picture, to get the perfect job and the perfect house and the perfect siblings and the perfect household with the perfect wife or husband and the perfect children. But unfortunately, we're not perfect. Maybe that's fortunately that we're not perfect, because we're always works of art that can be improved. And so asking ourselves the question, am I the problem? And investigating if the people around us are the problem allows us to continuously refine ourselves. It's important to mention that we all make mistakes, even those that are usually quite good with their logical abilities, their intuitive abilities. We're all bound to make some mistakes in life. And that in itself should allow us to view ourselves with more grace and more love and more compassion, more empathy. And so these are the 10 cardinal problems of the Am I the Problem? Oracle play deck: anger, meltdown, liar, sociopath, gossip, burnout, ego, victim, pride, and love bombing. If you like the idea behind Am I the Problem and you're watching this video before the 1st of January, you have a chance to join the Kickstarter campaign and get your copy of the deck to support the successful completion of the project. And you might even, unlock some rewards that are going to allow us to expand the deck and launch some additional add-ons with the deck. Thank you for watching. Let me know if you have any questions about the 10 cards, if you think there are any other cardinal problems that should be included as part of the red category that I have missed. And if there is any card that you would like to learn more about, leave a comment with it. I'll be posting a series about the different categories. So this is the first one, the red category, hence why I'm wearing red, why my microphone is red. Next is the blue category. That's the category for the emotional problems. So this is where things get a little bit more complex. If you enjoyed this video, subscribe to Stellar Storytelling, where I'll be posting more about this journey and any other publishing adventures, podcasting adventures that I'm doing at the moment, any creative updates. Thank you for watching.